Unleash the power of knowledge and connect with the heartbeat of the African diaspora. Download our African Diaspora News Channel app now on Google Play and Apple App Store. Stay informed with authentic and diverse perspectives, breaking news, and cultural insights. Immerse yourself in a community that celebrates unity, resilience, and progress. Experience the vibrancy of the diaspora at your fingertips. Don't miss out. Empower your perspective today. Search African Diaspora News Channel and join the conversation.
One thing I've realized about leadership, having lived in several African countries, is that if an African leader wants to work and change their country, they actually can. It's the easiest thing to do, but also it's the hardest thing to do, depending on who you are and what your intentions are. Burkina Faso's leader, Major Traore, since he came to power, he's made many changes, very significant changes, with the latest one being, let me just read this out for you. He says, report corruption directly to me. Let me tell you, if this directive is implemented, in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to be really surprised at where Burkina Faso will get. Hello there, how are you doing? Welcome to another episode of our conversations. My name is Ondiro Oganga. I'm a business journalist by profession and a digital content creator. And I love coming on here and having a conversation with you guys about Black people, Africans, our empowerment, and how we can rise up and take our rightful place at the global stage. Connect with me on social media at Ondiro Oganga across all platforms, or you can come over to my YouTube channel, New Dawn Africa channel, where I profile the continent through people, politics, and culture. I want us to get into today's video because a lot of radical decisions are being made in Burkina Faso, and for the better, actually for the better, because it's just time that African leaders begin to stand up and make the necessary decisions that will propel their countries to the next level. Now, Ibrahim Traore is no stranger to the media. Ever since there was a coup and he took over power, we have seen the country has been on the news for all the good reasons. Now, let us establish a couple of things. I am a big believer in democracy, particularly democratic rule where people go to the ballot and elect a leader. I believe in constitutional order because that way people are protected. But then again, time and time again, people have gone to the ballot. People have gone through elections and they haven't gotten the best of leaders. And we've seen a couple of coups in the Western Sahel. And despite the fact, or despite what we might think about coups, the people from these countries seem to welcome the coups. And I think for as long as it works for them, we're going to sit on the sidelines and see how things unfold. That said, let's get to Traore Ibrahim. Ever since he came to power, we've seen very radical decisions. One of them was taking back the power of their country, taking back leadership, taking back ownership, taking back their natural resources. You know, he's been very vocal about their goals, saying no more free gold, no more raw gold. We'll process it here, we'll add value here. If you want it, you'll buy it for the right market price. We've also seen him try to form new alliances, you know. If the US doesn't want to talk to me, if the US doesn't want to do business with me, if the US feels like they're uncomfortable and they have the final say on how I should run my country and do my business, then I'm going to look for other allies who are ready to work with me and work with what I have. And we've seen them gravitating a lot more towards Russia. Has its own challenges, but they know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. And his recent directive is very interesting because he says, if you see, witness, or experience corruption, report it directly to him. This is the practical example of my door is always open.
Parler à ceux de dehors avant de revenir en famille.
It's always good to talk to those outside before coming back to family. That's what you had to do. And also this time spent was necessary so that we could observe that you could observe what is happening. And I think that if there are people who must convey the ideology that we want to convey, it is you who work at the Central House. And I think that during these 15 months, you have been able to observe a lot of things with me in the administration. Almost everywhere, you have been able to observe the evolution of the situation. And I think that it was time, therefore, at the beginning of this year, that we could give ourselves a new start for the institution, but also for the whole country. There is a practice that happens in all the ministries. We notice that when you ask for work, automatically, it is an external study firm we give to the firm to do the study, and is expensive. But from you to me, you know very well, most of the time, the cabinet ends up being the cabinet either of the minister or of someone. In any case, in the ministry, do we understand each other? It's theft. Let's say it clearly, this is not good. For example, you are a computer scientist, you are asked for work in this field. It is you who are supposed to do it. Otherwise, failing that, you have to go back to at least state institutions that can help you do it first. That people do it's a file quickly. We recruit a firm, and we give them, and behind him, he goes to work. We observed that, so it took a long period of observation to understand and confirm the bad habits of people in the administration. We want to ensure that certain institutions, such as these firms, can be there where they will be limited. They will say that they cannot. It is necessary that they recruit experts in such a field. They will recruit, and they will do. But most of the work that we try to carry out in most ministries, there are resources at the academy to do it. So it will be operational this year, and very quickly, so that we can save a little. We're not against. There is a lot of private sector that is very developed, so private firms can also be used to carry out studies for many private structures. But we must not recruit skills in the administration, and each time there is a job, there are no skills, you have to go back to a private practice. Again, it's theft, it's cheating, and we're going to put an end to that. We talked about words like corruption, that's it. But it continues, fight against terrorism. Yes, there is progress in many things, but we ourselves must recognize that there is one aspect on which there is not a fierce fight. It is corruption, it is administrative slowness. In any case, the General Flight Administration must recognize that it did not work. But why it did not work is because we gave time to raise awareness, to talk to people so that people understand. In the army, that in the civil, that people understand where are we going, why we must stop such a habit. Not that people do not understand, they pretend and say to themselves that we will never take measures. Today, there are so many laws which have been voted to protect the worker. It's very good. But everyone should do the mission for which they were recruited. But people don't do the mission. And when we want to fire them, texts come out everywhere. Listen, you can't take the texts. Others come, apply here ETX. They live in 2023. I tell you, we live in the 1800s still. It's the reality. We cannot go at the same speed. We must not mix things up. While people have salaries of 3 million, of how many millions in this country, there are some who can't even afford a meal. You find that normal? No? No. I'm opposed to that. We have to change things, or we change or listen. We remain slaves forever. We are here to change things. We took the time to observe, to raise awareness, to speak as many people do not understand. At the end of the year, so I announced that it will be the machine against the fight against corruption will start. And well, that starts the disciplinary council and other. It was dead. We adopted texts so that people can sanction those who do not want to work. But nothing, no one wants to sanction. All world is sitting well, it's in his direction. People are screwing up. They don't want to do what they have to do. If I sanction him, we can fire him. It will be my fault. Listen, there is this kind of emotion there that must no longer exist. We are a country at war and we must manage resources well. And when we say manage resources, it is not only financial resources only but human resources too.
Nous sommes un pays en guerre et on doit bien gérer les ressources.
The reason why I'm doing this video and having this conversation is corruption is one of the biggest stumbling blocks to development in Africa. Anybody who's African will tell you that we lose so much money to corruption. We actually lose so much money to corruption. What we steal locally, and also Western aided corruption, where because somebody is willing to close an eye, bat an eyelid, or look the other way, multinationals have been able to come here on the continent, loot resources, do business, make huge, massive gains of profit, and leave very little on the continent. Why? Again, because of corruption, because there's no due diligence. Due diligence doesn't happen on the African continent. And so we're shooting ourselves on the foot. Three greedy people. Thomas Sankara says it really well. He says, you either decide if you're going to have champagne for the few or water for the masses. But unfortunately, we live in times where many leaders would opt to drink champagne with their friends other than have enough water for the masses. I don't know if this makes sense. And this is where it gets complicated because majority of Africans live in abject poverty. And these are countries that have massive reserves of natural resources. Sometimes I look at a country like Rwanda that has very little, very little, yet they're able to build up. And I think to myself, all these other African countries that have gold, that have oil, that have cocoa, that have rubber, that have timber, that have diamond, what are they doing? What are they doing? Guess what? The stumbling block is corruption. And he says all he wants is you people, if you see corruption, report it directly to me. What this is going to do, first of all, it's going to instill some form of fear, yeah? And also discipline. Discipline in that if you're a public servant, you know that now there are eyes on you. And I think Ibrahim has established himself as a very forthright leader and one who can squeeze you with an iron fist if he needs to. I think I'll give a practical example with Rwanda. So Rwanda, every year, they have this thing where they call it Umushirikiano, or in English, it's called national dialogue, where different leaders of different sector, private sector, public sector, sit with government officials, including the president, in a panel. And people say, this is what I don't like about this ministry. This was my experience in this ministry. This is what I don't like, in front of the president. Then the president takes up the matter. I remember one time last year, there was a gentleman that stood up and said that it had taken him, I think, over a month to get a business permit. The president was so angry at the person who was in charge. And though they were not fired, it's like you're being held accountable, responsible, and castigated by your boss in front of the whole country. So it's not just sending a message to you, it's sending a message to everybody. Guess what? A year later, that office has a one-stop shop where you only take 5 minutes to get whatever paperwork it is that you need for your business. So the reason why I'm saying this is to have leaders who take on leadership from a hands-on point of view. Depending on how you look at it, it can easily also come off as micromanagement because, yeah, why are you in everybody's business? Your job is just to oversee and lead. But I think that some of these African countries, the place that they are, they need very hands-on leader. And also this is going to be very important because now when people will be signing contracts with multinationals, they'll take time to read it properly. They'll take time to read the finer details of the print. And they will not be leading with greed, you know. Because we lead with greed, we find ourselves in very unfortunate situations when it comes to business, you know. The way the Chinese mine gold in Ghana and the way they pollute the environment, the way petrol and oil is being extracted in Nigeria and the damage it does to the neighboring communities, yet somebody signed this permit. So this is just to ensure that everybody does their due diligence. And if Burkina Faso continues like this, trust you me, in the near future, we'll be very surprised. We'll be talking about a very different country. So kudos to the guy. We wish him all the best. We hope he knows what he's doing. And we'll be here to report if anything changes. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again next time.